So we continue here in this auditorium with a new panel session. So interesting, and it would be in English. The role of data in transforming the publishing and the media sector, so important, journalists as well. Among the creative and cultural sectors, media and publishing share some relevant commonalities. In fact, they are both strongly related to content creation and very much affected by the digital transition, as you know. While these sectors are working hard to take all these opportunities opened by digital transformation, they are struggling to manage certain aspects complexity. One of these aspects, obviously, is certainly the capability to dive into a massive amount of data that could potentially transform the business and entire value chain. In a world led by data, friends, the aim of the panel is to discuss why data can drastically transform business and how stakeholders can get ready to take advantage of new technologies and innovation like this one, field technology. In particular, the panel will focus the discussion on the need to gather data within the publishing and media industries and how data supports and helps these sectors, and the role, so important role, of data visualization to improve people's awareness and understanding of business and societal aspects. So take your time, stay tuned, because this panel session should be with a very intense, very roles with Jean Goetze, Head of Product Management, BLAB, and Metabooks from NBV. Thank you very much, Jean Goetze, for being. Alexandru Stan, Head of R&D at EN2 Digital Innovations. Laura Aragó, Data Visualization Expert from La Vanguardia. Victòria Oliveres, Journalist specialized in data and visualization, del Diario.es. So we mix hybridization as well. No, we make this hybrid panel session with moderating from Simona de Rosa, Möbius partner from and PhD researchers at Den Institute. So Simona, take the poll. It's your turn. You're the misters of ceremonies. So thank you very much, Simona. And a big applause for this interesting panel session. So the role of data, it has to be the new digital horizon. So come on, thank you.
We welcome the panelists on the stage. Good morning, everyone. So, yeah, we are ready. So, good morning again. Thank you very much to be here today. I'm Simona de Rosa from the Institute. I'm one of the partners of the Möbius project, and I'm leading in Den Institute, as said, the research department. And today I'm here in this very nice booth, I would like to say, that is hosted by Digital Future Society and the Möbius project. So as you probably know, Digital Future Society is a program supported by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Digital Transformation of the Government of Spain. And they are in collaboration with the Mobile World Capital, Barcelona, and they are together aim to build an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future in the digital area. While the Möbius project is funded by the European Commission under the Horizon program, the Horizon 2020 program, and the aim of the project is to create, thanks to the use of new technologies, a new way to read and to use the data for the publishing sector. Together with me today, I have the pleasure to introduce you Jan Goetze. Jan is a professional in the publishing industry. He has a strong track record in product management and in business development management, and he's the head of product management at MVB. Then we have Alexandru San from EN2. He's the head of research and innovation in his company, and he has a very strong technical background in software engineering. And in the Möbius project, he takes care about the technological development of our tools that are data-driven. And in a way, in a certain sense, it also aims to explore new ways to have an enriched experience for the readings. And then we have Laura Aragó, a journalist specialized in data and visualization. Laura is based in Barcelona. She's working since 2016 at La Vanguardia. Her articles in La Vanguardia has been nominated as the best coverage at the Sigma Awards, so the World Journalist award in the sector. And she's currently a lecturer at the Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona. And last but not least, we have Victòria Oliveres, a data journalist, member of Diario.es, specialized in data gathering, analysis, and visualization. She's journalist graduated from University Pompeu Fabra and Master in Data Journalism. So, without any delay, let's start our discussion. The aim is to really go deep in understanding how the data and the new technologies are transforming two key sectors of the creative and cultural industries in Europe. So the publishing from one end and the news media from the other one. So I would like to start with Jan, asking you a very specific point. So we all know that data are crucial also for the publishing sector, but maybe you can give us a bit more deep vision of how the publisher are diving into the use of data, and if you can mention one challenge and one opportunity that the data are opening to the publishers.
Thank you, Simona, for your question. I think we cannot emphasize enough the importance of data for the publishing industry, because in the end, data sells books. And that is kind of like what our business is about. And I think mostly this is driven because data makes things visual or visible. So to provide books to the industry or to the customer, you need to make them visible, first of all, from the publishing sites or publishing houses who create the content. They need to display this content to the booksellers that they can make the selection, which books they are likely to put in their catalog. And this catalog needs to be displayed to the customer. And the classical way is to put just books into shelves in a bookstore. But the web stores are rising and online sales are rising. And that means that you need to display books in a different way. And this needs to be done through data, because in a store, for sure, you have the physical book, which you can take in your hand and place it there. But this is not the way how it's done on a web store. You need to display it with a nice cover, with the title, with the author information, with even maybe a reading example. And all this information needs to be pushed through different channels. So as I said, first of all, from publisher to the bookstore, so the publisher can inform, and then the bookstore needs to push this information to the reader himself. And while doing that, we collect a lot of information around sales information. So how many titles have been sold, maybe even to the target groups, and this information is pushed back again then to the bookstores and to the publishers to make good decisions which books should be published next. So far, all that is established very well, at least in the industry countries, so that you have huge databases where publishers can just push their information in, and automatically this information is handed out to the bookseller, which then automatically processes the information and displays it in the web store. So far, that's the easy part, and with all market research institutes around, this is really easy and it's already well established. So this is not the challenge they are facing. The challenge today is a little bit about competition, and competition can be done or can be seen in two different levels. So, for example, the German-speaking market has at the moment around 2.7 or 2.8 million active titles on the market which are available. So these are the books you can buy. But with access to the internet, it means that it doesn't make a difference anymore where you live and which books you are likely to consume. You can have access to all books in the world. I even don't have a number, but keep in mind 2.7 already in the German-speaking market. And there's a huge competition, and it's about reaching the customer. And as I said, we have information about the customer and we can provide data, but it's not very specific made for an individual. So it's about recommendation. And that's the first part about where you have a huge challenge with competition. But the second layer of competition lies in that there's a competition between different forms of media. So today's medias like YouTube, Netflix, Instagram, and so on, getting stronger and stronger. And I think everybody of you have experienced that after a long, hard working day, you just come home and you want to get a little bit entertained. And sometimes taking a book is just too much of a challenge already, because you are wasted from your whole day. So it's easier to just switch on laptop, tablet, TV, or something like that. So there's a huge competition between the different types of media. And while many of these have been built just in the digital world, they have already algorithms running. So what we need to face is like that the book is still capable of taking this challenge and still stays alive and is competing very well against these new, more modern media forms. But at the same time, and I think this is the opportunity we can see here, that modern technologies are more accessible or easier to access. And this means we can, first of all, take the customer in a new role. And this role is a more proactive role, and therefore we can start to talk about prosumers who are actively involved, and with that more inbound into the book with creating content by themselves. That has two opportunities again, because then the customer is more involved. So as in this role as a prosumer, he is more inbound in the book, more likely emotionally involved. So it means that the bound is stronger. And on the second hand side, it's like we are able to learn more about the customer himself. So we can gain a little bit more data about how he behaves, what are his favors. And we can use this information then back again to provide the right book, because in this whole field of competition, it's about like equipping the reader with the right book, and this is the biggest challenge, because in the early days we had bookstores with stuff in there. They have kind of like a very private relationship to the customer, so they were just aware of which type of books the customer was reading, and they were able to give the recommendations. Today in web shops this is not possible, because it's not personal, so we need to find new, better ways. And I think exactly that helps. If we inbound the customer in the end, we will know a lot of more. We gain data from the customer about the customer himself, which leads us to giving better recommendations.
Thank you very much, Jan. So according to what you said, it seems to me that you are quite optimistic in how publishers are diving and exploiting huge mass of data to inform their own business. I'm thinking if it's the same for big publishers that has all the capabilities and skills and competences, and the small one where maybe they still need to do the digital transition properly. But it's also, you mentioned the point on competition, new formats, and how new technologies are also bringing on board the readers as a new figure, so becoming active in the business. So this led us directly to Alex, because in Möbius, you are creating dedicated technologies that are very much connected to this new form of media. There are transmedia connected to the book, so it's really what Jan was saying. And you also have a bunch of work dedicated to tools to extract deep information for the publisher to renew their own business and restructure somehow the traditional publishing value chain. So how much do you think the Möbius solution, so the output you are developing, can be of help? So how they fit with these new challenges that Jan mentioned to us, and if you want to provide some information about the tools that you are developing.
Thank you, Simona, for this question, and good morning, everyone. Well, indeed, I think that tools are, of course, the key to unlocking the power of data and the power of what, let's say, digital technologies can bring to this industry. And if we look at the Möbius project there, we are developing a prosumer intelligence toolkit. So maybe I will step a bit back and say a couple of more words about prosumers. Already Jan has mentioned that this is the kind of a, let's say, new way of looking at customers. Not all customers are passive. And indeed, the data that you get from customers is no longer the one related to sales, titles that have been sold, titles that remain on the bookshelves. But interesting enough, now in the digital world, a lot of it is about data about the digital interactions that people have online about books, about the IP that publishers have. And here it's important to distinguish that there are readers out there that are themselves, in a way, so engaged with the books that they're reading that they want to discuss it a lot. They want to also contribute additional fan fiction stories, which they create in this kind of universe that their favorite books takes place. And there are many communities online that welcome this kind of people. So there's AO3, Archives of Our Own, there's Wattpad and other more, fanfiction.net, others that actually are a very, very vibrant place where people have a lot of interactions. And the data trace that they leave there, it's really an untapped source that publishers can really use in order to inform their business and to face these challenges of competition that were mentioned by Jan. Indeed, with looking at what people and prosumers in particular are discussing and are creating, and analyzing this data, you might be able to understand what are the hot topics which are currently of interest. You might be able to understand what types of characters are there which people seem to be more engaged with and create discussion. What are maybe the IP, the titles that a publisher might have which might need to be, let's say, continued, and some of them which might not need to be continued because there is very little engagement, very little discussion about that. And to do this, we're building a tool in the Möbius project, which is called the Prosumer Intelligence Toolkit. It takes in a lot of data from fan fiction communities, and through the use of data dashboards, it allows the users, which in this case the publisher actually, to understand, to really grasp what kind of information can be extracted from the prosumers. So you are able to, through interactive graphs, you are able to, and charts, you are able to really explore the data. You're able to use powerful faceted search to really dig deep into certain subsets of the data from these communities to understand, for instance, what are the characteristics for a certain title, for a character that maybe is across several books, and what kind of engagement, for instance, these characters are creating in the community. Under the hood of the Prosumer Intelligence Toolkit, there are quite a few algorithms that process the data automatically using machine learning and artificial intelligence, of course. Looking, for instance, at metrics that can be extracted from the dynamics of the community, from the dynamics of the popularity that is taking place there, and even looking at prediction models for understanding which titles, for instance, currently being created and being commented by the community, which titles have the biggest chance, for instance, to become popular in the near future. So all of this is something that the Prosumer Intelligence Toolkit is looking at, and I think that is going to really make a difference. We are, of course, now in the process of testing this with publishers, iteratively developing further based on the feedback. So it's really a kind of a co-creation process, really, that is at place here.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. I think it's also important to stress that algorithms, AI, machine learning can provide information that we do not have so far. And I think it can be very useful for the understanding of what is published so far and understanding what is missing in order to open also to new stories, new characters. So really use machine learning and AI to create a publishing sector that is also a bit more diverse and inclusive.
Find new opportunities and also understand, okay, these types of characters are underrepresented maybe, but there is a big interest in them. So then you can inform what decisions publishers will take in the future when dealing with new manuscripts that they receive. So that's super valuable.
That's important. So thank you very much. We now understood a bit better what is behind the publishing sector and the relation with data. If you are from the sector, probably you already knew, but if not, it's something that is not 100% crystal clear. While when we go into the data and visualization in the news media sector, probably something where we are more used to because we saw data in relation to news on our daily life. But it's also important to stress that this has huge relapses. I'm thinking to disinformation, for instance. So how data can be a big ally to counteract disinformation, misinformation spreading. And the point, just to make a quick example, I was reading a NewsGuard report about the use of ChatGPT to spread fake news, and it seems, unfortunately, that this kind of tool, not only this one, but also others, can really amplify the spreading of disinformation. So it's important to reflect with journalists on how data can support us to protect the news and information environment. So I'm going directly to Laura. Laura, you are a data journalist, so you are the best person here to provide some feedback on it. How do you become a data journalist, first of all? So which are the technical skills that make you a professional in this sense? Which are the keys of the communication of using data to deliver information to the people? And if you want to provide some example about how you apply and implement these techniques in your work in La Vanguardia, it would be, I think, very useful for us.
So to become a data journalist, I mean, you as a journalist need to be up to date of what's going on over the world. But as a data journalist, you need technical skills to analyze the data that allow you to explain what's going on or what happens in the world that we live in. So the problem with these technical skills is that the tools that we use in data journalism are in constant change and change very quickly. So, for example, when I started like my first steps in data journalism like 9 years ago, and probably Victoria will agree with that, the set of tools that we learned, most of them, we are not using them anymore. So we had to learn new tools during these years. And probably the tools that we are using right now will not be the ones that we're using in a few years. So you need to be very quickly and like open-minded to change the tools that you use. In this sense, I mean, the toolbox is important for data journalism, but it's not only about the toolbox. I mean, it's about methodology, it's about understanding the complexity of data, it's about turning data into stories, and yes, it's just a way to address issues or articles. So that hasn't changed that much during the last 10 years. So once you learn how to do that or incorporate to your way of working this methodology, then shifting from one tool to another tool only requires patience, self-learning, and the willing to do it. So yeah, it's not only about tools, but it's also a way of working. And yeah, I think that these are the most important things. So when we talk about like which are the keys of this new communication, which I don't think it's that new. I mean, I think we are doing the same that journalists have done always, but we are doing it with the support of the data and through data. Mm-hmm. So we not explain data, we explain stories, and the data behind these stories support these stories. So yeah, it's about stories, not about data. And actually, data visualization plays a major role in terms of supporting these stories, because it allows us not only to visualize these stories more effectively, but also we can avoid explaining boring things through text that would probably people would never read it, or it would be boring for people to read it. So if you sum up all these the important things of the data analysis into a data visualization that allows to connect with the readers and the potential readers in a most fastest and effective way. So how do we do that in La Vanguardia? I brought some examples, well, a couple of examples on how we turn data into stories. In this case, this wasn't a story, no, the last one, sorry. This wasn't a story about how...
This one is correct?
Yeah, this one is correct. So this wasn't a story about how the card was still the most effective mean of transport in the Spanish cities. In comparison with other European cities such as London or Paris or even Amsterdam, where it's better to move by public transport than private transportation like car. So what we did here was to use data from Travel Time, which is an application that works similar to Google Maps. Then you calculate how much it takes, how long it takes to go from one place A to one place B. So we take all this, take this data from this application and QGIS, which is, in case you don't know, is a program to manage spatial data and maps. So we used these tools to make this spatial analysis to find out which was more effective. So what you're seeing here is it's the time that you need to get from the center of these cities. So at the right you have by car, and at the left you have by public transport. So what you are seeing here is that with car, it's fastest to get almost everywhere than in public transport. So we make this interactive map so the user could fly from one city to another city and see these things. These spatial analysis applied to the city of the surroundings of the city where he or she lives in. So that was an example, and the other one is an article that it was published when the Congress was discussing about the right of abortion. So here, our purpose was to add more information on something that was on the media and people was talking about. So the right of abortion should be, at least in Spain, guaranteed by the public health system. But the truth is that there are a lot of public hospitals with, for personal reason of the doctors, that they don't want to practice this type of intervention. It's not guaranteed. So what happens here is that or what we find out, with this data of where these types of interventions are practiced, is that 30% of women in Spain had to travel more than 200 kilometers to have the right of the abortion in a public center. So what you're seeing here is the public and private center. It's the map on the right, and on the left you have only private system, public system, where you can see that there's like a major gap on southern west Spain. So it was about data, but it was also, okay, what's going on in this gap? So we weren't there, but we talked with organizations there, and we saw also which are the problems behind this situation. So if, for example, in the places or cities that are small, if you have to go to in a private center to get an abortion, people that are against this right, they would put in the front of the at the front of the door and try to convince you not to enter to this clinic, to this private clinic, to get the right of abortion. So it was not only about data and the maps, and yes, the headline was about data. It was about 30% of the women don't have this right guaranteed by the public system. But behind this data, we explained real stories of women that face this problem, and what does it mean that you can have the freedom to go to a public center or public hospital and have this right guaranteed. So it's a mix between data and real stories.
Thank you very much. It has been very insightful to see how you focus, the point on how the point is the story and not the data. Will you help us to understand what is behind the work of a data journalist? I'm still thinking that we also need a reflection on how the readers perceive the data. I mean, we all know that you work a lot to provide information that are insightful and also easy to get, but I'm always wondering how much all of us are ready to understand those figures, those maps, those data. So this is what I would like to explore a bit with Victòria. So if you can also provide some information about how you as a journalist, ask yourself the way there is the best one to communicate those information to the readers, and also if you notice some skills that should be from our side as a readers increased to get the best of these tools and these kind of infographics.
Yeah, sure. So as Laura said, we, as data journalists, we work a lot with data. We gather it, we analyze, and we put it together, we extract conclusions. But if it's not effectively communicated to our audience, most of our work would be lost in the way. So in this case, text is important, but for us, more important are really data visualization, charts, and maps. And in El Diario.es, the team where I work, we use a lot of charts. Like in any topic you can think about, we try to put there a chart or a map to make our information, our analysis more appealing for the audience. And this means we use very different types of charts. And what drives how we choose which visualization is better for the story is usually the data, the context, what we are trying to explain. That's the principal reason, the main reason how we choose the modality of chart. Afterwards, of course, we have to think how to make it understandable by the audience, because we know we have a very diverse audience. Maybe some people know more about charts, but some other people don't have this maybe visual thinking more developed, or they don't have the numeracy that are some of the capacities that it's useful to have to understand data. So we try, after we choose the chart, to adapt it for everyone. But the main reason usually is the best chart that will communicate this story. So maybe sometimes are very simple charts, maybe just bar charts or line charts. Even some people think these are too simple and maybe they cannot communicate very complex analysis. But if your analysis has a conclusion that can be explained through these simple charts, why don't use it? It's not because it's simple. On the other way, sometimes we think we need more complex charts, maybe that are not commonly used on the media. And maybe sometimes we are afraid, oh, will people understand it? Or it's too difficult, it's too complex. Well, maybe we don't avoid it, but we put a lot of hints. We use the headlines, we use annotations, we use color to emphasize some parts of the charts, or we explain them before. So with this idea, we also can get the audience, we can teach them a little bit. And maybe the next day they read us, they need less hints and they can understand even more. So we don't avoid this. I will show you in some examples how we do it. And in this case, it is a tracker about the CPI. You know, inflation has been one of the main topics during this year. This is an article that we are updating monthly when the new data is published by the official institutions. And with this, what we try to do is to break down a number that's usually, inflation is just a number that goes up and down, and put it closer to our audience, because it's one of the topics that is more close to them, really, because it's an index made of goods and services that everybody uses and buys, so it affects everyone. So we try to put this, to break down this number with different charts to make the people able to understand what this number is. For example, the first chart that opens this tracker is this bar chart that shows which components of the CPI index are going up or down. So we use these different colors, the direction of the bars, and even we thought it would be more interesting if we add in this chart the different width of the bars, because different goods and services have different percentage, or takes different percentage of the goods basket. And as it's not an usual thing to do, this bar chart, we put an annotation saying, okay, the width it shows that the food group, it takes for the 20% of the index. So then, after you have read it on the first chart, you can understand better the rest of chart. You have a first hint. After this chart, we break down the index and, in more pieces, and we add also evolution. So now the user can not only have the number of the last variation, but he can go before and after to see different variations of the index. And even, for example, we add also another chart that's a recipes table. We put it to you, like how does it affect you? How was the cost of baking a cake 1 year ago? Which is the cost now? So we put this data together and we show it with numbers. So it's not just a bunch of data, but it's in a way narrated, ordered. So we make it closer to the audience. In this case, it's an article that it doesn't bring a lot of interaction because we just put together the data, we make a narrative that it's understandable. But sometimes we think some data it's good that we add interaction in our charts so people can dive in to depending on their curiosity, their interest, and what they know. So in this case, it was an article we did about the popularity of children names in Spain and how it changed through decades. At the beginning, we present our analysis, so our conclusions, what we extracted, which names were more popular, which names were less popular. So we put our point of view. But after, we also add a search tool. So we let everyone look for their name of their interest. Maybe some people just look at it and didn't use it. So we have to make it also understandable for everyone without using it. But also, we add a level of interaction. It needs to be intuitive for the people, like, what do you have to do? Okay, there's a search tool. I can put here my name. I can hover. It gives me more information. And this is a kind of chart that has different levels of interpretation because different people understand differently the charts depending on their capacities and interests and time. So we have the first level of understanding, which is just looking at it. What is your first sensation of the chart? Then the second would be when you stop by and you read the headings, you read the annotations. And there's a third level of interpretation. That's when you go through the chart and you interact with it, and it gives you some extra information. So we have to make sure everybody will understand it, depending on their independently of their level of understanding of the chart. And last example I want to show you is another method we use sometimes of presenting data, that is scrollytelling. It mixes charts and text, and it's very useful for us usually to help how to read some information, help the audience to read this information. In this case, it was a chart that showed which percentage of the time we spend with different groups of people depending on our age. So at the beginning, we can see we spend a lot of time with our parents, then with our friends, then with our partner or kids, and at the end, the line that we are alone, it goes up. So we presented this while building the chart. So every text was talking about what every line was meaning. And with this approach, we made sure that after this presentation, every chart of the article would be better understood because we presented the main chart. We helped people understand this. Because this is our main point, that everybody needs to be understanding our data at some level. Maybe some people just look at it and they don't go further. Some people may need this text, these hints, and some people may also want to read more. So maybe they don't understand every chart in an article. That's why we put different ways of interpreting the data. But at the end, it has to be understandable and maybe enhance them some more questions that can be answered during all the narrative of the chart.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I think you said at the beginning that your way to work is also somehow to train people to understand. So it's a step-by-step, letting the users getting into that. So that's wonderful, of course, because it helps a lot. But still, I think a big part of the job, even for governments, local institution, is to push on digital literacy, media literacy, to create a bunch of competencies that really, for future generation above all, being in the best position to understand what kind of data, because they are being crucial for the future of our societies. The other final consideration that is taking to me this panel is that tools, both in the publishing and in the news media, is putting the professional stakeholders, but even the final uptakes, the users of these technologies in the center, in the core of the business, would be the publishers that are taking the role in really taking the data to inform the business, the prosumer in informing with their own data the publishing value chain, but even the readers that are making an active role in navigating the information. So those technologies can really make the difference in putting the users not in a passive role, but in an active way to act in both those sectors. Before to ask a final round of questions, I would like to ask the audience if you have something to ask to our panelists. There is some question in the audience. Yes, please, we have a question there.
No. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Well, I learn a lot. Have an old-fashioned name and many things in my life with your charts. The question is about the bias of data. Have you got any, in general, or especially you, about have you got any pressure in your media to present some data? For example, in the map of Spain with the public and private clinics, if one media decides to put only the map with the public and we are not sharing all the data, and there is a bias. What's your opinion about that, the bias of data and the ethics of this?
What do you prefer?
So the bias of only the way the data is gathered, and journalism is intentional. So we're going to have bias because we are doing journalism from our point of view, and our point of view belongs to us, and it's conditioned by our experience, but who we are, but where we studied, but everything that represents us. So assuming that we can have no bias, when we write information and we treat data and we analyze it, even the questions you ask to data are conditioned by the way you see the world. So I'm not trying to hide that when I address an article or an issue, or when I choose which methodology is the best one to approach a story. But I try to be transparent with the exercise that I'm doing. And actually, something really common that we data journalists use in not every piece, but almost every piece, is that if you pay attention at the bottom of the article, you have a huge box with an explanation of which kind of data process have been done, and the elections that we've made during this data analysis. So if we can avoid having bias, because we already have it, we are going to be transparent about the decisions that we've made and the ways, doing the data analysis and the ways of and the data approaching.
Thank you very much. Any other question in the audience? Okay, no, so probably we can go directly again to the panelists. A final question for you is, what's your take from this panel, which is the key message you want to leave to the audience for the future of your sector, so the publishing?
Thank you. I think for me, this interesting gap between my point of view with the book industry, which is quite focused on creating data or finding the right data around the book and the customer, and bring that together, especially with the data journalists. So where it is about like creating stories around or displaying the data in a manner that it's more humanified, that it's easier to understand. I think this is a little bit like a gap we still have in the book industry. Might be interesting to have a closer look.
Okay. Alex, same question for you. Your
Same
take.
question for me. I think what I would take back looking at the whole panel was that it is a mix that we have to always consider. And I found it very interesting that just after my presentation, I said, yes, tools are great and technology and everything. Then, no, wait a second. It's all about also the methodologies, because tools will change. You will have the next machine learning method out there that is going to be able to do this and that. You will have the new AI that's going to be able to do this and that, and maybe more data sources, richer, more unstructured. But the methodologies and the things and how you maybe use that to use the process data to then tell a story, I think that's also something which is very important and shouldn't be overlooked. And those have to work together, I think. You have to always bring this whole, let's say, 360 ecosystem, basically, of working with data.
Laura.
I feel somehow we are a few steps before in the media industry than in the book sector. I mean, it has been like, the book has been something that it's been for ages in our society, so it's a perfect element. I mean, it worked. But journalism hasn't been there for such a long time, so we have a shorter story, so we need a lot of time still to improve our way of telling stories, and even if you only look to the the short period of time where we've been able to do data visualizations and get people to interact with it and use technology to explain these stories. I mean, it's very, very short. So I think that somehow we need to improve and experience and discuss with with people working in it, but also with the readers to get to find new ways to take profit of these tools and explore new things to approach to them.
Thank you. Victoria.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, is a way to say that there's a lot of data, and everybody is using it. We can see in this world, like everybody is taking advantage of that. We collect a lot of data. We know about people more. We can explain more things. Why not make our sectors also use it for our point, our focus, which is communicating stories to our audience. And in this point, I mean, we have been for some years doing it, and I think I would be so happy if more media would be going for it, like hiring data journalists and giving them time to use data to explain new stories, to do journalism like they do, but with these new tools and big bunch of information that we have. And we have seen the audience likes it, is interested in it, and maybe we have to give them more tools to understand it. I agree with you with that, but I think that's the way to follow, the path to follow. So I would be very happy if this is more widely spread and more media try to communicate their stories also using these new technologies.
Thank you very much. I really thank also the panel, the question from the audience, because it gives us the moment to reflect that data can be biased, technology can be biased, so thinking to how AI can be built. So for me, the point is that digital transformation is happening. We will see in very crucial in the next years. The point is not also how technology and data are received, but also how they are built. So tech for good, for me, should be in the focus of the conversation for the technical side over the next year. So let's hope to continue this conversation also in how technology can create and help us in creating better, improved, more inclusive society. So I thank you all for the attention, all the panelists.
Thank you.
Mobile World Capital for the organization, the FS for hosting us, and I let you to the Congress have a wonderful experience here at the Mobile World Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you.